give you the business tips to successfully start and run your business so your business doesn't run you. And more importantly, we provide personal development tools to create a better version of yourself to provide the solid foundation for your life and business to stand upon. This is the BizReveal, and I'm your host, Craig Sawyer. This week's episode is sponsored by Sawyer Health Solutions. Protecting what's important to you is what's important to us. Get your free health insurance quote at SawyerHealthSolutions.com. Over the last 21 years, 𝐜𝐨𝐧𝐪𝐿 has helped more than 1,500 CEOs in 33 countries accelerate the growth of their businesses by bridging the gap globally for expansion and exposure to grow their business. 𝐜𝐨𝐽, also known as the CEO Confidant, also sits on the board of the Evolutionary Business Council, which is an organization with more than 350 global transformational leaders with a combined reach of over 600 million people. After the show, learn more at www.theceoconfidant.com. This is the BizReveal podcast with this week's guest, 𝐜𝐨𝐿.
This is 𝐜𝐨𝐿. My brand is the CEO Confidant, and basically my life is made by, besides obviously my family, which is really important for me, is I'm originally from Spain. I've worked an international life. I live in Plano, Texas, which is a suburb north of Dallas. And basically what I do for a living is, number one, I have a consulting business, and both corporate CEOs and established entrepreneurs, they hire me to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure as a way to accelerate the growth of their businesses.
Okay.
So, and I can do that because basically throughout my corporate career, early on in Europe in the 90s, I started working for large corporations, and I was able to start working internationally, closing businesses in more than 33 countries in the last 20 plus years, and helping more than 1,500 CEOs with their challenges, their growth challenges. So that's why I chose the brand that I chose. And at the same time, I had a spiritual experience in 2015, which allowed me to see that the reason why I had lived before living here in Texas, the reason why I lived in Latin America when I moved from Europe to Latin America is actually to be able to see so much poverty, so that I decided to help underprivileged kids in Latin America become entrepreneurs using their local resources. And we created along with a couple of friends, Wisdom for Kids, which is the foundation that actually does that, helping underprivileged kids in Latin America. So that's in a nutshell my life.
I like that. That's cool. And I appreciate that you're helping, in those communities, because that's something that as I get older, I feel like we need to do more of, right? I think when you're younger, you don't really, you're so focused on yourself and your own success that you don't really see the people that are not doing as well as you, and taking the time out to help them. That's awesome. When it comes to the companies that you help, like my first question is, how do they come to the realization that they even need you? Yes.
So I would say, well, probably it's not a surprise for you that for the last 12 to 14 months, lots of things have happened in the market, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of things. So I think that the purchasing habits of people and ways that people are looking for what they need is different, because they need different things, right? But they come to the realization that they need me basically when they're looking for someone that they want to make sure that they can expand globally using a path that has already been proven. That's the number one thing. So typically all companies, even entrepreneurs, all companies, regardless of their size, they realize that their IP, their products and services that they provide, they can also be useful for other people in other geographies that they have not necessarily still expanded to. So they start thinking, how can we do that? And there's a lot of, there's legalities, there's tax issues, there's, human resources issues, recruitment issues. But the most important thing is, how do we get to the market? How do we start talking to those customers? How do we start distributing our products and services? How do we find, trustworthy partnerships that we can start building our businesses up on those particular geographies? And those are the questions that we are able to answer. I say we because basically there's a team behind me I've been able to build for the last couple of years. And that's why. So very often, even being entrepreneurs, someone comes to us and say, hey, what you do is so pretty cool, you should do this globally. You should take this globally. There's so many people that could benefit from what you do, right? And you can be a coach, or you can be, manufacturing a certain product, whatever that is. But going global, we tend to think also, Craig, that as the internet is global, anything that we can do globally on the internet is already global by definition. And unfortunately, this is not true. This is kind of a blind spot. It's an unconscious bias. Let's use this term, which is very famous these days, right? So we tend to think that as we're in the internet, it's the same. Let's say we speak English, right? So it's the same selling to Americans and selling to Canadians, selling to South Africans, selling to Australians, selling to Brits, right? It's not true. It's not true. It's definitely not true, because copywriting, because all the different things, all the way that you market your products and services is going to be different.
Yeah, because every cult or every company has its own laws and everything, and you also have the different cultures that are going to be in each one of those areas that might
totally
tell you what kind of direction you want to go to when it comes to your marketing.
Exactly, and also, as you know, I mean, I've helped companies expand nationally, and for instance, just to give you an example, a company based in Texas having a very, very hard time to open an office in Chicago, just to give you an example, to find the right person to lead that office and to be able to start developing the business for that Texas-based company in Chicago. And I'm just mentioning an example. I mean, right now, you live in Florida, I live in Texas. Both of our states are kind of, pretty, how to say this so that we don't hurt anybody's feelings. pretty open from a restriction perspective, right? For whatever reason. Again, I'm not here to judge anybody, and I like to build bridges all the time. But so, let's say business is speaking up again, and people are starting to invest a lot and to think about how am I going to spend more money so I can keep the growth of my business.
Right.
So all those are the questions that both entrepreneurs and corporate C-levels are asking themselves: how to take this to another place, to another geography outside my own backyard, and still being respectful of the culture. So, and it's funny how as I told you, I work with kids. It's funny how when we go, it's so amazing how your life or God or whatever that you believe in, it puts everything in your life in a way that suddenly it all makes sense. Mm-hmm. When I go to Latin America and I teach kids, one of our main concerns is how are we going to be fully respectful of their reality, fully respectful of their culture. So we're not invading them in any way, but still we can make a positive impact in their culture, right? In their community. So it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing in business. So that's why, we were having a conversation, Craig and I, about how to express ideas and how to talk to people. And I think that making things which might seem complicated, making them really simple and being able to explain them really, really simple or simply, I think it's an art and it's a skill, and it's very, very needed today.
So is there some research that you do prior to that then? Because you want to know, I would assume, to be able to do that, make sure you're not offending anybody and not, overstepping any types of boundaries that we just may not have here just because of our culture. Do you do some research on those different areas, those different countries that you go into before you expand then?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, first remember that one of the reasons why I do what I do is because I have developed such a strong network of partners, of clients, of friends, of distributors, of resellers. So I know so many people in so many countries that represents a real soft landing.
Yeah, that helps.
So when I'm having a conversation with a company saying, okay, we're going to expand to Brazil, for instance, I happen to speak a little bit of Brazilian as well, of Portuguese. But, we sit down with people that have done this consistently. So we're able to have a conversation between, someone, let's say in the US or in Canada, whatever, and, we want to expand to Brazil, let's say. So we have these conversations in which we're able to lay on the table everything that needs to happen and everything that, my partner, my company, or my client's company here in the US needs to know before, we have a soft landing in Brazil. And it has to be a soft landing. And every country has their own cultural differences. So we have to make sure. And again, this is a skill, right? I mean, this is something that when you do over and over and over and over again, right? It's like you mentioned briefly before to me that you had been in the military, right? Mm-hmm. So how important is persistence? How important is to do one thing over and over and over and over again so that you master that. You master that specific thing that you need to do to accomplish certain strategic goal, right? So it's the exact same thing. It's persistence, until it becomes something that comes natural out of you. And that's what my team and I have been able to develop.
Oh, for sure. And so when this first starts, you know, the company that is looking for your advice, they're like, yeah, you know what, we're doing pretty well, but we're doing pretty well here. And I think we've got something special that will work in other places as well. We need to speak with somebody who can help us get bigger. What is that initial meeting with you, whether virtually or in person? I know almost everything's done virtually these days, but how's that initial meeting with you? How's that go?
Okay, yeah. Number one, it's three different steps, I would say. Number one is obviously to get to understand each other, what we can do and what they really want to accomplish. Okay. So do they really have the right questions or the right reasons why they want to go internationally? Yes or no? Is it just they want to grow? Why do they want to grow? Why do they think that this is going to work in other markets, even before we start talking about what geography, what market is going to be? Right. Number two is, do they really have the financial lung to do this? Because you have to have not only the revenues, you have to have the profitability, you all have to have the cash flow. Do you really have the cash flow to have this done for the next, let's say, 1 year? I mean, less than a year is not, less than a year is even not realistic. Okay. If you really want to start looking at foreign markets, less than 12 months, they're going to give you really any positive or any real feedback that you can base your strategy. So do you have the financial resources available already today to support your company do that? And we started a conversation saying, so this, this might cost you this, and this, you might have to do this, and you might have to do that. And then the third step is, okay, so this is what I think that we should be doing as far as customizing your value proposition, right? So which is your product or your service. Mm-hmm. So this is what right now, after just this very brief conversation, that can take, let's say 1 hour, 2 hours. So this is what I think we should be starting as far as, the starting point of how to start looking at that market and start talking to the local presence, the local partners, the local distributors, or the local potential clients. It's very common that we try to be perfectionist and we have to try to have everything under control before we go to another market. Right. I think the other way around. Totally the other way around. I think that you have to be completely vulnerable and you have to be completely open to have conversations, informal conversations with potential clients and business partners of yours before you go to a new market. And literally have a conversation over lunch, over dinner. If you cannot travel, let's have it over Zoom. But really say, hey, we would like to do this. We would like to launch this. Is that something that would interest you as a potential client? We're not asking you for a purchase order. We're just asking you for your opinion. Right. How do you think that would work? This is what we do here. This is the benefits we provide here to our current clients. What do you think that would benefit you? If it's not you, who do you think?
So it's almost like a brainstorming session where you're trying to be creative and get some ideas together, as opposed to having everything already lined up and in plan and implemented. You're trying to open up the door and try to get the ideas coming in.
True. And setting up the right expectations, Craig. It's very important to set the right expectations. Because again, we think that, okay, so we have very high levels of revenue, we're thriving. It's the time to go internationally, but it's not always the case. Again, we have to drill down also. How profitable is your company? How do you really understand, do you have enough cash flow? It's really going deep. But allow me to insist in the expectations part of it, because I think that very often there's this in these conversations, there's things that are not being talked into in detail. And I think it's very important to set the right expectations from the very beginning. This is a journey. It's going to last this long. And this is what we're going to do. And we're going to be really humble. And we're really going to open our mind to be allowed and to be able to adapt our products and our services to the new market and see how they can fit and if they can fit. So again, it's very often things fail because the expectations are not being set, not even the right expectations, because there's no expectation set, and that is wrong. I mean, it looks like this is not rocket science, but anybody who has a partner in their lives, or even kids, come on, you never set the right expectations. Right. How often do you,
but you can never meet them if you don't know what they are. You can never meet the goals if you don't know what the goals are in the first place and how you're going to carry it out. And actually that kind of leads me into what my next question was going to be is, where is the biggest deficit with companies? What is their biggest weakness when it comes to this process? Is it the expectations? Is it that they think it's going to go faster than it does, or that it's going to cost less than it actually does? What's their biggest weakness there?
Yeah, I think that they underestimate the cultural differences and what it entails to get to a specific culture. Again, as I said before, and the typical example is, no. I'm already very successful doing this locally. I'm just going to translate the material, and we're going to hire some local salespeople. That's going to run. That's going to take care of itself. It's not true. It's not true. You always need to set the right expectations with the local people. You have to start training these people. You have to onboard them. You have to make sure that they are part of the local culture of your own company. Again, imagine that whenever you're going, speaking of, is that thunderstorm?
Yeah.
What I'm hearing?
Can you hear that? We got a little bit of storm going down here. Welcome to Florida.
Exactly. Welcome to Florida. Excuse me. It was so strong, so loud here. So it's the same thing. It's like God is telling us in this conversation, hey guys, do you want to go? You're going to go abroad. You're going to go start, going to start your business somewhere else. Be careful, because what you might think that you already know, you don't really know. Very often people ask me the following: what kind of clients are you looking for? What kind of industries? Is there an industry that you prefer? I always say the same thing. It's about the business leader. It's about the person that's going to eventually hire us, more than the industry, because we have health, retail, we have healthcare, high tech, oil and gas, you name it. And the common denominator is always, does the business leader really want to change? Really want to change? Okay. And sometimes we have had to drop some clients because they not want to change, or they were changing too slowly. Right? We would advise them to change a few things that they wouldn't do it. No. We don't want to do it. Again, we all know change is difficult, but that's why I said, even if I tell, let's say what you do is amazing and you want to go somewhere else. You are in Florida already. You are surrounded by a very, there's a lot of Spanish population. Let's say you want to expand your business to Colombia, let's say, right? And you say, no. There's so many Colombians living in Florida. Just reach out to a few of them. We'll have some conversations. I'm going to say, Craig, unfortunately, this is the wrong answer. Just because I will definitely like you to have conversations with some potential vendors, some potential business clients of the future, and to have a conversation with them to see, okay, so this is me as Craig and my company, Craig, LLC is going to offer these services to Colombia. And I really want you to have those conversations with these potential clients and to really understand, how the different pieces of the puzzle are going to be working. Again, that's the number one blind spot, underestimating the differences between doing it from here. Everything is, telematic today, right? Everything goes through online. So everything is going to be the same. And it's not true that this universal culture does not exist. It does not exist such a thing as a universal culture.
So what you're saying is it would be different talking to Colombians in Florida as it would be talking to Colombians in Colombia, right? Because of their environment, their cultures, the legalities, the differences in income and all that stuff. They're in it. They're right in the middle of it, as opposed to Colombians. Maybe they've lived here for 10 years. They're already used to our culture. So you're not really getting it straight from the source that way. Unless
they do the same as I do, right?
Right.
But yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I had, since I moved to Latin America in 2001, I literally had, we were talking about Latin America as an example, but we could go to Europe as well, because I started my international career in the 90s in Europe. So we tend to think that, again, everything is global and blah, 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 but it's not true. And what I was going to say is that every single, I mean, even if you read books about culture and about, you know, how to embrace the way business is being done, there's always this, you know, the market is going and it's changing much faster than what we can really perceive when we are not living there and we are not having the same struggles that they are having locally. I used to travel literally 250 different flights a year for many years, going to all those different countries and going to Europe, back and forth, and Latin America. So again, I mean, you end up developing a skill. You end up, you know, analyzing, you end up developing systematic ways to approach businesses and countries, you know. So that's the value. Basically, that's the value that we offer to our
that's the
clients.
experience. The experience always talks, and if you have more experience doing those kinds of things, you're going to be better at it. So when it comes to the success of doing this, you know, I know we talked about what some of the pitfalls might be when you get started. Mm-hmm. Give us a perfect scenario, like a company that, man, they just cruised right through this process and they were successful once they got to their end goal. What sets them apart from others?
I would say what sets them apart are those things. Number one, this openness to really embrace and test every single thing that is being suggested to them, because it's not the same like someone that's selling, you know, a product, a specific retail product, a specific consumer group, than a company which is offering, you know, high-tech services. But the number one, openness to embrace different ideas and strategies while getting to a specific market. Number two, going early to meet with clients. That's definitely one of the keys to success. Starting the conversations with potential clients really, really early on. I mean, really early on, as in maybe not 1 month, but 2 months, 3 months down the road, already have a lineup of potential clients to have these conversations. Hey, we would like to launch this. What do you think of this? This is the way we would like to do it. This is how we do it. This is what makes us different in other countries. Do you have something similar here? Do you think that we could compete? How can we compete with this? Or can we collaborate with someone? Is there an already existing network? And that's number three. Are they open to embrace local partnerships that will ensure that their landing is going to be soft? In the future, you can do whatever you want, but what about going hand in hand with someone that doesn't have that offering yet, doesn't have that offer locally, but is willing to set up a partnership? So those are the three things: being open, being really open to know ideas and strategies that they have not tested locally in their already existing market. Number two, making sure that they want to connect with potential clients and start talking about their viable product or viable service, you know, soon enough. And number three, establishing the right partnerships from the very beginning. You know, I like to think in terms of abundance, Craig. You know, I don't think our scarcity is going to take us anywhere.
Right.
As much as I like market share as anybody else, Craig, you know, what about having, you know, a 50% of something rather than 0% or 100% of nothing, right? So, I mean, I've seen this over and over and over again. And guess what? After what's going on in the world right now, my friend, I think that collaboration and partnerships is definitely, or should be definitely, in the forefront of the strategy of anybody trying to expand their business.
Yeah, and that's probably a common theme too, is you have somebody who's been doing their business for a long time. You know, they feel like they know everything about it, and to release that power, and like you said, change is always hard for any of us. So relinquishing that power over the growth of their company, their baby, to somebody else, but they're doing it because you're the pro. Like you go to a doctor, right? Because you know that the doctor specializes in what they do, and you trust that doctor to help you because they know a lot more about medicine than you do, right? And I think it's the same way, but it's always difficult to do that, because if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner and you built that business, especially to the size that you're talking about it needs to be before you start expanding globally, it is hard to relinquish that power over to somebody else and trust them with cradling that little baby of yours. That's gonna be pretty difficult.
Yeah. And also when I work with entrepreneurs, let's say, and they have like more of their hands into their own business, right? They control more of the business, even with themselves. I mean, having access to the people that's going to localize and customize their products and their services faster I think that's extremely important. Again, don't take your chances. Just, very often people ask me, what were the main mistakes you made in your business when you started as a consultant? Not asking for help was one of them.
It is tough because you want people to trust you and think, you're the pro,
Yeah.
And sometimes asking for help, it makes you feel like you're not.
Yeah. And also, you have this imposter syndrome. Oh, then they're going to know what I don't know. So what? So what? So what? That's who you are. You're not going to cheat anybody. You want to be who you are. It's all about setting expectations. That's who you are, and that's what you know. Let's do that.
Is that the biggest piece of advice that you would give? Is it setting the expectations, being open? Is that the big,
I use a mantra for my business, which is going to be related very much to what we spoke about before, which is take imperfect action now. That's my favorite one, which is related to the second and the third steps of going internationally. Because I think that people are, again, we want, I know where that comes from. This comes from our school system, our formal education. Everything has to be perfect. We have to be 100, 100 out of 100 people all the time, no matter what. Right. And this is so wrong. If we have to have everything perfect, honestly, it's by walking that you realize that things are working or not working. It's like, again, I've never served myself, but I had both my grandfather and one of my uncles served in the military back in Spain. When you start the mission, whatever that mission is it important what you're seeing when you get there, as opposed to what you had what your plan was? Oh, come on. Of course, as soon as you start being in the field, in the ground, you start seeing many other things. And what do? You course correct, you course correct, you course correct. So it's the same thing. We are as human beings, we are so flawed. I apologize for saying this openly, but we're so flawed that we're trying to have everything perfect before we make a step. And that step would actually show us so much. Talking to that particular specific client could teach us so much that would probably change the rest of things, the rest of decisions we will make.
I think we learn a lot more from failures than we do from books, right? And you never forget the failure, so it usually lasts longer.
Yeah, and also, and to your point, I love reading books. I'm always reading books, and something which is so amazing is that when you read a book for the second time or the third time, if you ever do that, it's a completely different book, Craig. It's totally different, and you say, what's wrong here? No, it's nothing wrong. It's just that you're a different person because you took so many routes and you made so many mistakes. You learned so many things that right now it resonates in a different way. And it's the same thing. That's why taking action, and it's so important. And also, I don't have to say this, people obviously can understand it. Now that people are more afraid of, for whatever reason, of traveling, physically speaking, and there's restrictions and there's quarantines and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, having the right partners in the right countries is more important than any time before, right? So being able to connect immediately with people locally that can give you that, perspective and can put you in touch with these potential future clients, it's never been more important than now.
Who is always important, but like you just said, kind of pointed out, in fact, I hadn't really even thought about it that way, but, having somebody on the inside, if you got somebody in all of these different places, you've got somebody on the inside, you've got eyes and ears right in the middle of everything. So I know with all this advice that we're kind of giving and information that we're giving, I like to kind of put a spin on this. And if you get stuck on this one, don't worry about it. But is there any piece of advice that you have given that you have not taken yourself?
Well,
I'm really good. I'm good at giving advice, but I suck at taking my own advice.
Something which is, I just mentioned this a few minutes ago, which is I suck at this because sometimes I say, no, I have to regroup. Mm-hmm. I know that there's, and I preach all the time, and I have done it in the past, but right now, probably I don't do it as much as I used to do it before, which is collaboration. Okay. And it's one of the main mistakes. It's one of the main mistakes I made when I started my own journey as an entrepreneur. I think that collaboration is key to start your own business.
Do you think that it's been because you've learned so much that you feel like all the things that you may have collaborated with other people before to gain their knowledge, you've now gained yourself? So you're not talking to those people as much anymore?
No, because I think that we don't collaborate properly.
Okay.
Just think of yourself. I mean, for instance, I use LinkedIn a lot. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. Okay. And obviously a lot of people reach out to me saying, we'd like to collaborate with you, blah, blah, blah. And I've received hundreds of them literally every single week, but we don't know how to collaborate. Let's say after that collaboration message, there's a phone call or there's a Zoom call, let's say, and we start talking. Chances are that collaboration is going to take us anywhere. It's just because we don't set the right expectations. It's just because it's not very clear the way that you exchange value. It's not very clear what you expect from that other person and what that other person expects from me. You know, I have a very good, I would say, teacher or mentor that he uses something called the secret contract, which he says that his theory is that we all have secret contracts with everybody. So, for instance, in my case, I have a wife, I have kids, I have obviously friends, I have relatives, blah. I have a secret contract with everybody. And the secret contract is that contract, those clauses that have so many expectations, those expectations that you have from other people and the expectations that other people have from you, but you've never, ever spoken about. And let's say, I mean, let's mention my wife, which is one of the closest people I have to me, right? So there's things I've never spoken with my wife, and there's things that my wife has never spoken with me about. There's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. Always going to be there. And obviously, she expects me to do things that she's never spoken about. And the same thing. Guess what? Very often when there's conflicts between partners, you know, it's because they expect something from us that maybe wasn't communicated clearly, or you or never was communicated. Of course, I've told you so many times, you should already know this. Right. You know, when I go back home, I expect you to have the dinner ready for me, whatever that is. I'm obviously, I'm making a joke out of it, but if you analyze this, if you take, let's say, your top 3 best friends, Craig, I dare you, they have expectations from you that they've never told you, and you have expectations from them you've never told them.
And that's where misunderstandings come from. Because again, like you were talking about the expectations, if you don't know what they are, how are you expected to meet them? And you're right. I mean, there's things, because especially when you're talking about spouses, I can relate, man. I think we could get on a whole completely different topic on this one right here. Men talking about their wives never ends well. But you could, that whole mind reading thing, right? You know, like I'm supposed to you can't expect me to read your mind, but it's because they may, and when I say they, I'm not just talking about spouses, but they being your customers, your coworkers, your partners, they may expect you to react or do things that you don't know that you should be reacting or doing because it hasn't been conveyed to you.
Yes. So that happens in all areas of our lives, all areas. And also you can walk away from those non-written secret contracts. You know what I mean? So it's not, I mean, it's all about the education. I mean, there's too many restrictions in our relationship. And it's good to say to your friend, one of your best friends, hey, unfortunately, if you're expecting this, I will not be able to fulfill that because A, B, and C. And if they are friends of yours, they will understand. You know what I mean? So again,
and you're putting those expectations out to them that way.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just communication. But again, we're so distracted. Mm-hmm. We are so continuously distracted all the time with so many things that we don't end up ever just having those conversations, because it's easier when you meet with a friend. Okay, so you're going to meet over a beer or over a meal, right? And you're going to have fun and you're going to make jokes about another friend, or guess what I saw, guess what they did, blah, blah, blah. And you will never have really a deep, it's not very common that you have very deep conversations, like right. really, really deep conversations. I mean, I'm not criticizing nor blaming. I'm just saying we tend to be very superfluous on the conversations we have with our friend. And this is obviously to the detriment of the relationships and the expectations of the relationship. Again, it happens. I'm just saying this because it happens consistently in the business world as well.
Sure.
There's no exception. This happens in the business world. So even if there are contracts and there are scopes of work, you name it, there are still misunderstandings. And so that's why I think that it's flexibility is a very nice virtue and thing to work on.
And I'm a firm believer in, you know, keeping good company, right? You are who you're around, you know, and I think we've all seen, you know, different phrases out there that if you hang out with millionaires, you're going to be a millionaire. If you hang out with, you know, crackheads, you're going to be a crackhead, right? I mean, it's just, you are your environment. So knowing that your role models are tremendously important to you growing up and after you're in the thick of things in life, you know, and you know, you have a business started, you've got a life going on. Who were some of your role models that you looked up to that you said, you know, even current ones, you know, growing up or current, because sometimes they change in time because you're, you know, what you're looking at ahead of you, it changes. But who are some of your role models that you want to emulate?
Yeah, I have to confess that I really haven't had any like mentors or role models as such. I have been reading a lot throughout my life. I would say books have been good companions of mine.
Okay.
And probably the first person ever that made a huge impact, obviously, I mean, outside my father, who would be probably like one of my role models because he's a successful business person. But regardless of my father, personally, my father or my family, I would say that the first person that really made a big difference, and he opened my mind to many different concepts I had not been so clear about, was Tony Robbins. When I went to one of his events, I went to Unleash Your Power Within. I was totally onto that event, like completely immersed. As you know, he speaks about immersion a lot.
He's a great speaker.
And, exactly.
Yeah.
And the whole, you know, he came to Dallas in 2012. I think it was 1 year and a half later, after I had already come here to Texas. And there were many concepts that he was talking about, like, you know, how you tie, you know, wealth with the amount of people that you help. The concepts about health, for instance. I remember that in 2012, not many people will remember, but everybody was afraid of the Ebola. And that was 2012, like big time. Mm-hmm. And he was making so many jokes about Ebola throughout the entire 4 or 5 day, you know, event. And he was saying, our immune system is so magnificent, is so powerful. Don't you worry, even if the shape of Ebola is the most known shape of any small microscopic beast on Earth, right? Don't worry about it. You're all going to be right and good. And you know, so there were so many concepts. And besides, as you know, he's able with the music and with his words and
right.
with his tone.
It's powerful.
He's mastered communication.
Yeah.
Even though, well, everybody knows his voice is, you know, he's having issues.
Very
with his
big
voice.
and boomy.
Yeah.
He commands power when he talks. He is a phenomenal speaker.
He's a phenomenal speaker. Yeah. So he's definitely one of them. Another person that has made a difference because of his knowledge is Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I really like neuroscience and epigenetics and these kind of things. He has a great book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I think that we, in general, as humans, I think that we are continuously trying not to be humans and be more supernatural kind of thing. And I think that we are continuously, you know, we have this survival mode that, you know, is there to protect us as an SPC, right? So we can survive, right? But it's so wrong, right? It makes us so conservative. It makes us so be fearful and be careful of what's going to happen around us, right? When in reality, we should be devote our energy on other things rather than be careful, you know, right and left. So those are two people that I have really admired in my life.
Knowing what you know now, because you've obviously experienced a lot of different things. You've lived in different places. You've spoken to so many different people.
Yes.
You've been exposed to so much different culture and different types of people around the world.
Yeah.
So knowing what you know now, if you could go back to 10-year-old Angel, what would you tell him?
Take more risks.
Take more risks. I like that.
Oh, yeah. Big time. This imperfect action, you know, the thing that taking perfect action now, oh my God, I would tell Angel, take more risks. Take more risks. I'm not telling you not to calculate the risk, but take more risks. Every time you're presented with an opportunity, think why not, as opposed to do I really have to, or if I take it, what's going to happen to me? No. Why not? Talk yourself out of the opportunities as opposed to the other way around. we're always trying to convince ourselves, is this the best option or the other option? No. Take that route and then think, okay, so why should I not take that route? Definitely.
And I think that would also keep you from regretting a lot of things later, because regret is one of the worst things ever. And I know I've met people who say that, you know what, I don't really have any regrets. I don't believe that. I think we all have regrets. There's things that we have said no to that could have changed our life if we said yes. You're on vacation and, your wife wants you to go on I don't dance, man. I don't dance. And if you saw me dance, you'd understand why. But if you go out there and dance, what do I care? I don't know these people. I'm never going to see them again. I don't care if I embarrass myself. I'm having a good time, but I don't go, And I think I like that. I mean, and that's a small risk, right? But just an example of how small some of those things could really change things. I think it was Richard Branson that said, if somebody offers you a position and you don't know how to do it, say yes and learn how to do it later.
Exactly.
Right. And learn. I mean, if you're not good at it, you're not good at it, and you just go do whatever it was that you're doing. But why not? Don't pass up opportunities that way. So I like that advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had a pretty, entertaining life, but still, I would have loved to take more risks, many more risks, and do many more things. I mean, I had not many traumas and not many traumatic situations in my life, but I'm very happy with who I am today, and I'm happy of who I am because of everything has taught me something. Everything that has happened in my life, but still, I would have loved to take more risks.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who are listening to this and, heeding that advice, it does tie into what we were talking about at first, with expanding business, take that risk. If you've been thinking about it, but it just seems too big, too cumbersome, you never know. Right. Angel, that's our time for today, man. Thank you so much for joining me. If you wouldn't mind, take a minute or two here. Let everybody know how they can reach out to you and get in hold of you for your advice and everything that you give out there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Obviously, thank you for the opportunity, Craig. So the easiest way to reach out to me, you will see anybody going out there to social media. You will see me everywhere, every single day. Thank God I have a team helping me to do that. And my name is Angel, A-N-G-E-L, last name Ribo, R-I-B as in boy, O. The reason why I'm spelling my name is because my email address I'm going to share with you is very simple. I would love to have your opinion. What did you think of our conversation today? My email is angel@angelribo, one word, angelribo.com. And again, my brand is the 𝐠EO Confidant. If you go, I'm very active on every single social media outlet. The one which I am the most active is LinkedIn, the professional network. And I will be very glad to obviously interact with you. Thank you for the opportunity, Craig. And obviously, thank you to everybody who has been, who has listened to us today.
For sure. Thank you for joining us this week. Go to our website at thebizreveal.com to catch all of our past episodes. We're available on all podcast apps, or you can watch any of our episodes on the BizReveal YouTube channel. This is the BizReveal. Till next time.